So welcome to the session, those of you who are attending live and those of you who are watching on the record. The idea here is that we're just going to have a little bit of a chat all about SBR and think about really whether you want to pass SBR in December or whether you want to pass SBR in March. And it's a personal decision. And what I would like to do is to introduce myself to you, to talk about this December, March, to talk about the resources that we have available that are out there for you, and then to deal with any questions and answers. So I'm envisaging this session to last, I don't know, 40 minutes, maybe an hour. It depends on those Q's and A's. It depends, you know. I'm happy. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm an ACCA member, so I did these exams myself as a student when I was working. So I studied. It was obviously before the internet days, but I completed my examinations, and that's something I was very proud of. And I did so when I was working at KPMG. I worked in insolvency. I was dealing with bankrupts. I dealt with the bankruptcy of George Best. Which some of you, well, he went through the office anyway, which some of you may remember as a famous footballer. But I found that working in practice wasn't my vocation. Teaching was my vocation. So I spent most of my career teaching at Kaplan, and that gave me some fantastic opportunities to work abroad, live abroad. And when I came back from Singapore, few years ago, I did some teaching at my university. I did some more work with ACCA, so they used me as a consultant on some of their stuff. But I found that I was able to go online and discover this direct teaching world with FME Online. So my life now, my professional life, is dedicated to helping students pass their SBR exam, through my online courses. And I'm very present on LinkedIn. I'm very supportive of my students, but there's also a lot of free content that I give out as well. And I'll come back to that later. So that's a little bit about me. I'm here basically to help you pass SBR. All right. So you've introduced yourself to me through those quizzes. I've introduced myself to you. I'm married, 3 kids. Anyway, let's not go there. Let's introduce the exam. This is why you've tuned in about the exam. So this is going to be fairly high level. This is a compulsory exam. All right. Compulsory in the sense that to be ACCA, you've got to do it. And in doing the exam, you've got to do all of the questions. And you get basically 3¼ hours. And luckily, you don't have to get 100 marks to pass. You only need to have 50 marks to pass. Everything in that exam is compulsory, a bit like at work. You can't turn around to your boss and say, don't fancy doing the bank rec today. Oh, VAT. No, that's not my bag. I'm not going to do that. You have to do what you've got to do. All right. And that's why my course is comprehensive. That's why my course is comprehensive, because I want to prepare you properly for this examination. All right. Now, although it's accounting, the exam is strategic business reporting. So actually, there's only a few numbers, maybe 15%, maybe 20% of the exam is numbers. Most of it is explaining to a stakeholder, to a shareholder, to a colleague, why you've done what you've done, what it's all about. So let's drill down into the exam in a little bit more detail. Groups is always examined. Now, last sitting, September, they introduced a new system of testing groups. And I was involved with ACCA, helping to train the other tutors and to explain how that was implemented. And it's not a change in the academic level. It's simply a change in the way that students were tested. So students are given, you will be given in the December exam or the March exam, a pre-populated spreadsheet. And you will then have to update and correct that spreadsheet with additional information. And you have to explain in words what adjustments, why you're making those adjustments. What's the reason? Question 2 is on ethics, but it's not about you being a philosopher. It's not about you listing out the 5 ethical pillars. It's all about application, application, application. You will be put in a situation of an ethical dilemma, and you'll have to analyze it, discuss it. Could be to do with data protection, IT, could be to do with bullying, could be to do with creative accounting. You'll be painted a picture, and you've then got to go and try and give some advice. Accounting standards are absolutely the backbone of this exam. They really are. All right. But it's not accounting standards in a multiple choice. And it's not accounting standards in terms of number crunching. And it's not accounting standards in the sense of what's the definition of. It's accounting standards in the sense of application, application, application. So you could get a typical exam question where we own a factory, there's been a fire, so there's some damage, there's an insurance claim, and there in the course of the fire, we've polluted the local river. We've caused some damage to a neighboring property. And so you're given a story. And nowhere in that story does it say what's the definition of. But you have to recognize that if the factory has burnt down, well, maybe you tell me, if the factory has burnt down, what accounting standard springs to mind? What are you going to have to do in respect of that property? Can you use the chat? Thank you, Jay. It's an impairment. Yeah, it's an impairment. And if that property is insured and we're looking to make an insurance claim, that's a contingent asset. And if we've damaged the river, if we've damaged the farmland, if the fire has somehow released chemicals into the system, and we're responsible, potentially we're responsible for clearing up that mess, what's the accounting issue there? Provision. Thank you, Rahul. So by painting a picture, by telling a story, the examiner can see whether you understand how to apply the accounting standards. And a situation where there's an impairment, a contingent asset, and a provision could be there in the exam for 6 to 8 marks, but no numbers involved. You're advising, you're discussing. So accounting standards are there all the time. They're there in question 1, they're there in question 2, they're there in question 3, and they're also there in question 4 as well. Question 4, some people think of it as a current issues question. It's not really, but you're often involved in trying to identify an investor focus in question 4. So that's a very, very brief outlook of the exam. This is another way of thinking about the exam. What do you see? What do you see? What's that a picture of? Ah, it's a duck. If you look from right to left, it's a duck. Yeah. Narain thinks it's a duck. Kumba thinks it's a rabbit, because if you look the other way, it's a rabbit. Calvin thinks it's a rabbit. Do you know what? Everyone's correct. If you see a duck, you're correct. If you see a rabbit, You are correct. Welcome to strategic business reporting. Because sometimes there isn't one right answer. And what matters is that you sometimes see things in the round and you appreciate things can be accounted for in different ways. If it's a property, it could be an investment property or it could be PPE. If it's a derivative, it could be held for speculation or it could be hedging. All right. So we need to be able to discuss, and sometimes the exam questions are incomplete. So it's not necessarily certain whether or not we're going to make a provision. Is there a constructive obligation? That might be a matter of conjecture where you say, well, this or that. If it is, it's this. If it's not, it's that. All right. So accounting in the early days is debit and credit. Accounting in the early days is binary. Yeah. Plus, minus. But in the reporting world, it's a little bit more, have we made the right disclosure? Is this the right policy? How things would be different? So you're articulating, you are writing, you're justifying, you're analyzing. Yeah, you're analyzing. Now, be prepared for a little bit of an advert coming up here, because I think if you want to pass strategic business reporting, then you should sign up on one of my courses. Yeah, because I know the fantastic pass rates that I get. I know the feedback that I get. I know I'm a platinum provider. Yeah, I offer a unique offering. You're buying me, support, marking, quality with payment plans. So if you do want to pass SBR and you're prepared to do the work, I'm prepared to do the work and support you as well. All right. And I do offer courses. Courses are open at the moment. Now, what's this slide about? What is this slide all about? Well, what's happening on the right-hand side is those soldiers are marching, march. And what happens on the left-hand side is Christmas, is December. Now, interestingly, 2/3 of you have already entered the December exam. Well done. Fantastic. I'm sort of hoping that you're the ones that aren't working. I'm sort of hoping that you're the ones who are already signed up on a course. It is not impossible to start today. It is not impossible to start today and to pass the exam in December. It's tight though, but it's not impossible. If you're working full-time and you haven't started and you haven't previously passed a strategic business reporting exam and you haven't previously studied SBR, my gut reaction is you should be conservative with a small c and go for March. Going for December is a sprint. Going for December, if you haven't started, it's possible. The reason I say that is I want November to be the month of revision. I want November to be the month of revision. If you sign up with me for the December course, I will support you through to December. Eyes open. But you've got effectively 5 weeks to crack on and complete the tuition phase. Because to pass this exam, you not only need to know the stuff, but you need to be able to apply the stuff. So there's ground to cover. There's ground to cover. All right. Thank you, Alina. That's very kind of you to say so. You've got to absorb that information. If you're studying with me for the first time, you've signed up, you sign up for December, and you realize that you get promoted, you fall ill, something happens in your life, I will support you by flipping you through to March. All right. You'll only ever know whether you're going to be able to do December if you start now, right, and go for it. Because my course will ethically, I will refuse your money in October. Ethically, I will say, look, it's just not, it's not tight. It's too tight to do it. All right. I will still be able to support students through to the December exam through my Revision Plus course, which hasn't opened up yet. That Revision Plus course is a revision course, really, and that opens up next month. Yeah, so my revision course, my Revision Plus course is there, but I'm spending too much time on the advertisements. Let me instead talk to you about resources, because anybody who wants more information, if we are a full-time student, is it possible to pass in the December exam? Yes, it is. I think Narain, you have an extra advantage being a full-time student because you've got more time. So absolutely yes, even if you haven't started. Yes. But if you're working full-time and you've got a family and you've got a job and you've got a commitment, it is still possible. I'm just saying it's very, very tight. You need the best support, and I'm here to give you that support. But this time next week, it's too late to sign up. That's all I'm saying. Right. There are lots of resources out there that I offer to help students pass their SBR examination. And if you've got one of these, yeah, and you use Instagram, then follow me on Instagram. It's harmless. All right. Not everybody likes Instagram. Fair enough. But it's harmless. There's a limit to the amount of information that I can portray on Instagram, but I'm on it fairly regularly. I post little things, little articles, little links. Occasionally I do Instagram Live. So if you do use Instagram, find me on Instagram. You can see my handle there is Tom _lecturer Tom _Clendon _SBR _lecturer, or you can use the QR code there. So that's one simple free resource for everybody. Spotify is or podcasting. You can go Google, you can go Apple, but I do regularly podcast, and there's a good back catalogue now of me talking about derivatives, revisions, impairment, exam technique, group accounts, fair values. The list goes on and on. I think there's like 30 or 40. And each of these podcasts are 10 minutes long. They're short. They're sweet. All right? They're designed to be useful. People tell me they listen to them when they're jogging. I've even had somebody who tell me that they listen to them at the gym. So multitasking. And Mohammed, you're not the only one who uses them potentially to go to sleep at night. So if you're an insomniac and you're struggling to get sleep, then maybe, just maybe, there's an opportunity for you to listen to my voice. LinkedIn, I am all over LinkedIn. I'm assuming you are following me on LinkedIn. I'm assuming as a young professional, you are on LinkedIn. If you're not, you should be. Yeah, if you're not, you should be. Anita, until you pass. Yeah, and I back you to pass first time. And if you don't pass first time, I will support you through a second time on my pass assurance. So, Anita, you get access to the course for the exam you sign up for. You can defer once, and I give a pass assurance as well. Alina, how much theory? Sometimes people use the word theory when they mean words. So it is primarily a written exam rather than a number exam. But you're not necessarily writing theory. You're giving advice. You're discussing. You're explaining. You're explaining to a shareholder why an impairment loss doesn't affect the cash flow. You're explaining to an investor why we report on sustainability matters. Yeah, why it's important to have green credentials and why that should be communicated to investors. So I don't think of that as theory. I think of that as application, discussion in a quasi-practical situation. The examiner is constantly imagining that you're a practicing accountant and you're dealing with real people. All right. And fundamentally, the financial statements at this level have been prepared by a computer, by a junior underneath, and we're on top with a finance director. So we're communicating with the board, we're dealing with some of the technical issues, there's some new technical stuff. Lorraine, my course is pre-recorded, so it's flexible when you listen to me. The videos are interactive. You can speed them up, you can slow them down, you can pause them. They come with notes, they come with quizzes, and I'm very passionate about marking. So I take in your work for marking and I support you through WhatsApp. All right. So I'm always here available, in order to support my students' queries, because this is what I do. This is what I do. YouTube. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube if you haven't already. You can find me on YouTube. My numbers are growing on YouTube. So you can find me on YouTube. Sometimes they're short ones, sometimes they're long ones. You can see I've got quite a bit of content up there for you to have a look at. And of course, the ACCA practice platform. The ACCA are providing a lot of free content out there. Past exams, I don't really think you need to have a revision kit because the past exams are out there. And I don't really, so practice platform is vital. Is vital. I've been talking quite quickly, haven't I? I have been talking quite quickly because it's been half an hour. And in terms of my set piece, I've done the introductions. I've introduced yourselves to me. I've introduced myself, and we've talked about the exam. And I've tried to talk about the nature of the exam. And I've tried to address that issue of whether you should do the exam in December or March. If you've already started studying for December, keep going. But remember, November is the month of revision. If you want to start with me from scratch, I'm happy to take you for December, but only if you sign up in the next few days. And if things are tough for you, for whatever reason, I can flip you and transfer you to March. So if you're studying the first time and you're a little bit unsure, probably you should go for March if you haven't started already. That's my generic advice. I get a lot of questions about which version of the exam you should do. I don't mind. I will support you whether you do the UK, the Irish, or the international version. It doesn't matter. The UK and the Irish version deal with FRS 102 as well. So there's a bit of extra work. So they're a little bit more difficult, but I provide resources to enable you to study those aspects. And it's only for a few marks. Most people do the international because it's easier. Most people do the international because they don't need a practicing certificate. If you need a practicing certificate, you should do the UK or Irish variant. When we should be confident to pay the fees for the exam, I mean, which month? Okay, so we're in the month of September. You have to enter the exam by the end of next month. If you're going to do this exam in December, you have to pay the ACCA, the exam fee, £200 odd. You have to do that in the month of, if you haven't done it already, in the month of October. Yeah, so by the end of October, because you've got to be serious about this. If you're going to do an exam in December, you've really have got to made up your mind and basically have done the work so that November is the month of revision. I can't emphasize this too much. Talking to students who didn't pass, their one regret is they didn't do enough revision. They didn't get up to speed quickly enough. It's difficult to put across the time pressure that students are under in this technical exam, because there's very few professional marks in SBR. Very few professional marks in SBR. In the other exams, there's a lot of professional marks, so it takes a little bit of the pressure off. Does that answer your question, Lorraine? Okay, I've got another question coming in here just to me. Okay, no, you do. Okay, you don't need to learn the accounting standards by name, and you don't need to learn the accounting standards by number. They will those things will not be asked, and you will not earn marks for them. I've got another direct message. I'm signed up with a provider, blah, blah, looking for extra help. Would the revision course work? Yes, absolutely it would work. My Revision Plus course opens up next month. And that Revision Plus course takes the syllabus and says, I'm assuming you've done the course. I'm assuming you've sat the exam. I'm assuming you basically are comfortable, but now we need to revise. And you need to revise 4 things twice: groups, IFRSs, ethics, and investor focus current issues. So you've got to have the knowledge on groups, you've got to have the knowledge on IFRS, you've got to have the knowledge on ethics, and you've got to have the knowledge on investor focus. But knowledge is not enough. You need to have exam focus, exam technique, and know how to approach the question. So I have revision notes, I have revision videos on my course to build up your knowledge. Quizzes, yeah, revision notes, revision videos, quizzes to quickly get you up to speed. Then for each of those 4 subjects, I also have an explanation as to how you should approach a question. And I go through a past exam question and exercise, and we mark it together. And it's done well, it's done badly. I try and put you in the shoes of the marker, give you these challenges. Then I get you to do an exercise that I want to mark. Excuse me. Marking is so integral and important because it gives me an opportunity of giving you very direct and personal feedback. So the revision course, when I say November is the month of revision, I will close my revision course at the beginning of November, because I have a whole series of small deadlines in the month of November where you're submitting pieces of work for me to mark. I send it back. Another piece of mark, I send it back so you can improve. There are 2 mock exams set on the ACCA practice platform, original mock exams that I mark, give you feedback on, and then I write my own answers. Yeah, so so it's understandable, and I teach exam technique. So I hope that helps, JL. I hope that helps. Yeah, I do mark, I do provide guidance. There are stage payments available for that as well, JL. Platinum revision. I've been talking a little bit about that. Platinum is the teaching course which covers everything, gives you the pass assurance. And if you're starting from scratch, probably you want to think about that from March. So The Platinum course gives everything. The Revision Plus course is what I've just been talking about in answer to JL's question. That's got a lot of marking involved and feedback, whereas the core is a little bit cheaper because it doesn't involve that feedback. It doesn't involve that process. So that appeals to some. How many hours should we study each day if we're starting from scratch? I like the word each day. Now, I wouldn't necessarily work 7 days a week because, God, I think, wanted us to rest on one day, didn't he? And you need a balance in your life. But I like the idea of little and often. And I like the idea of making progress. So certainly it's really hard for me to put a specific number in terms of this is what you must do hours per day, because it's an output process rather than an input process. You need to understand, and some people will understand and pick things up quicker than others. Partly it depends on who's explaining it to them. Yeah. Partly it depends on whether they've done this before at FR. Partly it depends on whether they like the numbers or like the standards. So it does vary, but the syllabus, and in a structured course like mine, you can see what's involved and how long it takes you, and as you go through. So you need to start studying. You need to work hard. Every day is a good day to study. Take it a little bit easy and liaise with your tutor. JM, yeah. I'll tell you what. What will be better is if we communicate. Hang on. So I have a WhatsApp number, and as somebody has kindly said already, I do kind of live on my WhatsApp. So by all means, if you want to follow up with questions that we want to discuss on a one-to-one basis, please WhatsApp me. All right, please WhatsApp me. You've attended this session, fantastic. I'm not going to stalk you. I'm here to help and answer questions. But if you did want to have further information about my courses, please don't hesitate to WhatsApp me.